My name is Anna, and welcome to today's message. I am a spiritual based grief coach. I'm an implementation consultant for a global company, a ministry student, and a business owner. I'm also a mom to two grown children and one beautiful grandchild. And I'm doing all this at the age of 55. When most people are considering retirement, well, I'm just ramping up. And I bet you're wondering how I ended up like this. Well, hang on, let me tell you. But to understand it, you first have to know where I came from and the unbelievable story that got me here. How I went from condemnation and judgment to grace and divine favor. If you're a regular watcher of my platform, you'll know that I usually do two messages, but tonight, because this one's a little longer, we're just doing one. Our message tonight comes from Ephesians 5:14. Awake, O sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. This verse explains it all. It's a call to awaken spiritually and embrace the light of Christ. What if I told you that you can create a profound act of healing within yourself? Would you believe me? Or maybe I should ask you, have you ever had a moment where everything you thought you knew suddenly was different? Did it seem larger than life? Well, if the answer is yes, then you might be experiencing a spiritual awakening. And this experience, when it happens, well, it changes your journey and your reality. And you'll end up viewing the world and yourself in a way that leaves you overwhelmed and surprised. Now, you've been hearing how God opened my eyes in a miraculous way. For months, I've been trudging through the mud, and I finally emerged on the other side of what has essentially become the most profound thing to have ever happened in my life. And trust me, when I say I've been through it, whatever you want to call it, I'm calling it awakening because I truly believe that's what it is. It is the transformative experience of having a sense of direct contact with and union and understanding of the ultimate reality of the universe and God. And it's not just a special event for me, it is for everyone. And as I've learned through the experience that there is no special stage in life or age associated with it, and thousands of people, me included, are experiencing this all at one time. And none of us have the exact same experience, but yet we all have a similar experience. And that links us together as a group. We have what you might call a similar thread. Or if you know about the red string theory, it's like that. Now, some people have asked me about it, and I thought perhaps I'd share some of what I learned and how I came to the conclusion that what I was going through was a spiritual awakening. First, I want to tell you that in the beginning, you don't even realize it's happening. For me, it was a strange sense of knowing something was going down, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My entire life, I've been empathetic, and I've explained in the past about my ability to experience some things that I haven't been able to explain. But I don't think I'm special that way. I just knew I was different my entire life. And I've always been sensitive to those kind of things. Now, this is a spiritual journey, and it doesn't make appointments, and there's no specific schedule. So, surprise, here, life is about to be turned upside down. And you can't predict it, but I'll tell you what happened to me so you know the signs when it's happening to you. So, what makes this happen? Well, first, I'll tell you it is a life crisis. That is the common theme. Something happens like a trauma, a large change, or a major event, and you're forced to look at your life in ways you have not previously had to do so. For me, it was that I fell in love with a guy who essentially used me. And when I realized that he knowingly did so, and he was a repeat offender, releasing and repeating women, and that I had no clue, I became pretty broken. This was the first man I had truly fallen in love with, in 8 years since my boyfriend committed suicide prior. The fact that he knew my circumstance, he had been widowed himself, and he did it anyway, caused extreme pain for me. And I went into a tailspin. And what happened to me caused me to question my very existence, my purpose, and why I was even still here. The wanting and desire for a deeper meaning of life catapulted me into the unknown. And this unexplainable event that followed is where this journey began. For the next several days, I didn't sleep well. I barely had a couple hours nightly. I was overwhelmed with emotion, continually crying. And when I did fall asleep, I had dreams that were so incredibly lifelike and overwhelming that when I woke up, I began to pray. I could physically feel the emotions of this man as well as my own, which I can't explain. And it was the most painful and excruciating experience of my life. I called out to God to stop it, even in my sleep. And I asked him to heal this person and heal me because I just couldn't stand the pain. I know it sounds almost unbelievable, but that's exactly how it went. I emerged from it a different person after approximately 5 days. In truth, I really thought I was going crazy, and I even considered taking myself to the hospital. I've since learned that this is a common occurrence among awakened people, and it's significant in the journey of those who have alcohol and drug abuse. Now, when you begin your transformation, you start to reevaluate all the things in your life. The awareness of your life becomes a rediscovery of the past, and you start sorting through past trauma and the behaviors that you have. Your deeper level of knowing begins to emerge, and this new awareness is where you start to question your mental health the most. You somehow recognize that all the things you've gone through have a different meaning, but you're really not sure why. Once this new awareness settles in knowing, you start to analyze it. And as you analyze, for those of you who are like me and you're empathetic, well, you begin to empathize with others and choose a deeper part of discovery and spirituality. And you become attuned to nature and all the living things, and energy takes on meaning. And you become very emotional. You begin to read other people's feelings, and the emotions are overwhelming. You become very aware of your inner self, and you actually feel energy in a very literal way. And those who aren't empathetic, they choose to be more mindful and become more observant, but begin to discipline themselves more and expose themselves to new things. You go through a period where you have to revisit all the old trauma and wounds, and you start to face your fears, and you wait in a holding state as your process. Take some time to get through that part. It's like peeling away layers of burnt skin and all the parts of yourself that made you confrontational for years. It's excruciatingly painful, and you're required to find forgiveness, and you somehow find a profound sense of healing. And as the ugliness leaves, well, beauty starts to come to light. And you begin to see what you couldn't see before, and you see yourself differently. Next, you choose solitude and begin to reflect, and you go inward. And you'll choose to be quiet and to be alone. You'll choose to simply think. And even though you've closed yourself off, you don't feel alone. There was times when I didn't leave my house for up to 9 days. I isolated myself, not because of depression or anxiety, but because I had to work through what was happening to me. Loneliness became safety. And I found myself in a quiet, peaceful state of mind, and I didn't need any more, which was a vast change from who I had been before. And as I made this change in my life to more solitude and less people, I found that many things I previously liked doing became simply meaningless. My heart began to choose different things, and it prioritized my life. Now, you've heard me say the heart chooses our lives and controls it. And this is where I found that realization. I realized that My heart was choosing this path, not my mind. My mind began following my heart instead of the other way around because I was choosing inner growth. And all that uncertainty in my head, well, it stopped. And while inner growth was occurring, I became very spiritually aware. I suddenly realized the significance of God and Jesus in a way that I hadn't before. I became aware of how life began and even how I got here. And I discovered who I really was, and I wanted to know everything I could. I started reading books and listening to internet podcasts and understanding philosophy and finding spiritual shows on Prime and Netflix. And the things I liked to watch on TV became useless, and I stopped watching them. I began a new exercise program. I started eating differently, and I started to see who I really was and what I really wanted to be, aside from the ugliness of this human life. I exposed myself to who I was deep inside. I found good, bad, and ugly. And somehow I found a little girl who is buried under all that grief, trauma, and social conditioning. And I found myself going outside more. Though I've always had a green thumb and enjoyed plants, I could feel the energy coming from them. I began to realize that every single thing is living. And I was at peace outside, and I began listening to the birds sing, and I realized that life is beautiful, and I found an inner unity with nature. And though it seems strange, I actually learned why people hug trees. Because the truth is that trees heal you. And there was a zero space between myself and nature, where I had just become a part of all of it. I realized my human being of who I was is energy. And I joined with nature, and this energy was profoundly healing. And I found intuition and a sense of wisdom that had increased, but I just couldn't explain it. I began to write a daily journal, and I somehow knew when I came to a crossroad which way to go almost instantaneously. What I used to call gut feelings were becoming my inner knowing, and I became aware of who had what feelings toward me, and I knew exactly what I needed. I began to meditate and listen to meditation music while I slept. And it helped me become aware of new and different things, and it quieted my mind. And by this time in my journey, I was continually moving at the speed of light. I was able to find an inner voice. I balanced myself, and I could physically feel the transformation of who and what I am. I began to feel energy without trying, and things were happening that I still can't explain. I began feeling strange sensations, and I would go from having incredible energy to being completely exhausted. And I could be warm and then freezing, and the strange experience finally leveled out after about a month. And since I'm 55, I did what most 55-year-old women would do, and I blamed it on hormones. But I've since learned that this is a common theme in awakenings. And it happens as your body becomes accustomed to the new energy and adjusts to the new awareness of your life. And you begin to find purpose in whatever journey God has called you for. And even when you don't have the answers, you have faith and trust because you understand it now in every true sense. You understand that God is giving you whatever you need and want because you simply chose Him. The universe has become your home. Every star and galaxy has a meaning, and the moon looks different. The sun is warmer, and life is magical. You align with every single little thing that God puts in your path, and you sleep easy again. And then the journey begins again. But this time it's got a different meaning. You take what you now know and you build. So, if you want to know how I went from a mess to being blessed, and how I became a grief coach, obtained my dream job, began my faith-based business, and decided to enroll in ministry school, and choose to live in complete harmony, and I found self-love, let me tell you, just dare to ask God to give it to you. Choose the journey. Because I'll tell you, even though it's excruciatingly painful, At the end, you emerge in unconditional love and in a complete state of peace. And that, my friends, is nothing short of a miracle served by the grace of a very mighty God. If this resonated with you, please like and share my post. Thank you for your donations to my Divine Mission and for helping me to keep my message alive. I'll see you next time.